Hello, I'm Kate Giljohann from the University of Melbourne, and I'm going to tell you about our recent paper published in the Journal of Ecology titled Interactions Between Rainfall, Fire and Herbivory Drive Resprouter Vital Rates in a Semi-arid Ecosystem. Disturbances are a key factor shaping community structure and demographic rates in many ecosystems. Yet the frequency and magnitude of large-scale disturbance regimes are changing in many parts of the world due to the increasing pressure of humanity on ecological systems and climatic changes. And this makes it crucial that we understand how climate and disturbance regimes interact to influence the persistence of species. But accounting for interactions between multiple disturbances and other key ecosystem processes is not generally undertaken. In our study, we evaluated how 3 ecosystem drivers influence survival and reproduction in a perennial resprouting grass species from semi-arid Australia. 3 key processes affecting plant populations in semi-arid ecosystems are rainfall, fire, and herbivory. Rainfall is typically non-seasonal and highly variable, and plant populations are dynamic in response. Fire releases nutrients and reduces competition between species, and many species have adapted to specific fire regimes. Herbivory affects plant populations through consumption of biomass and trampling, and can limit plant survival and recruitment. However, the conservation of Australian semi-arid ecosystems is of concern. Natural wildfire regimes have been altered, and prescribed fires are implemented to limit the size of future wildfires and reduce fuels. But these fires are generally much smaller in size than wildfires and are lit during the cooler autumn and spring months, unlike wildfires, which occur in summer. Intensification of agricultural activities with their artificial water tanks have enabled populations of native and invasive herbivores to sustain elevated abundances semi-independently of the prevailing environmental conditions. And global climate warming is expected to result in reduced annual rainfall and increased drought frequency. Interactions between fire and herbivory have been found in other semi-arid ecosystems, but we don't know to what extent rainfall, fire and herbivory interact to influence plant species persistence in semi-arid Australia. So to look at this, we proposed 3 hypotheses. First, that rainfall is a major driver of flowering, post-fire recruitment and post-fire survival of seedlings and resprouting plants. As herbivores are known to target recently burnt areas due to the higher quality forage, our second hypothesis was that herbivory will reduce post-fire recruitment and regeneration, and that this will be accentuated in the smaller prescribed fires. And third, that herbivore impacts will be more intense when rainfall is below average. We propose this last hypothesis because when productivity is reduced, plants' ability to repeatedly resprout has been found to be limited. We tested these hypotheses using Triodia scariosa, a perennial resprouting hummock grass and dominant understory component of the Australian semi-arid woodlands. Triodia is a tough, spiky grass, making it generally quite unpalatable to herbivores, but an important refuge for small fauna. We used 11 years of monitoring data from a long-term experiment investigating the response of plant populations to varying fire, wildfires and prescribed fires, and to herbivory, using herbivore exclusion plots. The period of data collection included both drought and record high rainfalls. We then modelled the survival of gannets in relation to changes in rainfall, fire and herbivory, and an interaction between fire type and herbivory. So these plots are standardised model coefficients, and they show how environmental variables contribute to survival. On the y-axis are the variables included in the models, and on the x-axis the effect size. A positive effect size indicates that higher values of the variable increase the probability of survival along that environmental gradient. We found post-fire survival of seedlings and resprouting hummocks was positively associated with rainfall. First-year seedling survival increased markedly with spring rainfall, whereas resprouting hummocks responded positively to total rainfall over 12 months spanning the fire, indicating that successful resprouting requires rainfall both prior to and after a fire for building energy reserves. Interestingly, these results demonstrate that the effect and timing of rainfall differs markedly between life history stages. Prescribed fire and herbivory interacted to decrease survival of seedlings and resprouting hummocks in the first year post-fire. On its own, herbivory following wildfires had a minor effect on survival. The average probability of seedling survival during the first year after wildfire and in the absence of herbivores was approximately 75%. The presence of herbivores after prescribed fire reduced average seedling survival by 25%. Survival of established hummocks after wildfire and in the absence of herbivores was on average 95%. But, as this next graph shows, survival was significantly reduced by the combined effects of prescribed fire, herbivory, and low rainfall. Interestingly, the impact of herbivory was not evident after wildfire, despite variation in rainfall. These results suggest a twofold effect on the herbivore response. First, because wildfires are generally large, intense fires, they kill or displace many herbivores, and thereby reduce their local density. And secondly, the larger area burnt by wildfires conceivably acts to dilute trampling and grazing pressure. We also modelled other vital rates, which I won't discuss here, and those results support the conclusion that wildfire and prescribed fire cannot be considered equivalent from a management perspective. Detection of temporal variability in the effect of herbivory is an important new insight, and this was only possible by conducting long-term research that spanned extreme wet and dry years and multiple disturbance events. In summary, our study highlights the importance of modelling interactions between key ecosystem drivers when predicting how changes in global climate and disturbance regimes influence plant vital rates. We found that relatively small changes to disturbance regimes can substantially alter population processes. And finally, as interactions between disturbances and other ecosystem drivers can induce unexpected outcomes, our findings suggest that conservation of foundation species, such as Triodia scariosa, will benefit if fire management decisions are better integrated with interannual weather forecasts and herbivore management. Thanks, and do check out the paper.